Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Nehemiah, the 5th chapter. And just recapping at this point, we dealt with in the 4th chapter the continuing of the building, right? And how everybody was joined together and focused on completing the wall, okay, around Jerusalem. And as I mentioned, even though as we're reading it as verse by verse, in actuality this is taken, you don't build a wall that size overnight, right? So it definitely took some time. So now we're in Nehemiah, the 5th chapter, and this chapter mainly addresses, some of the unrighteous dealings that were going on among the people at this time, okay, in which the Lord put the spirit on Nehemiah to deal with, okay, and primarily this was dealing with usury or interest, which you're not supposed to do, at least against your fellow Israelites. So this is the book of Nehemiah chapter 5 verse 1. And there was a great cry of the people and of their wives against their brethren the Jews. So in the midst of this time period, as the work is going on, there started to arise this dispute, right? This complaining, this great cry of Israelites against other Israelites. Verse 2, for there were that said, we, our sons, and our daughters are many. Therefore we take up corn for them, that we may eat and live. And basically what they were their claim or issue was that they have sons, they have children, right? And these are more so the Israelites that weren't nobility, so to speak, right? And what they were complaining about is the lack of food, right? They needed more food to feed their family, and so on and so forth. And as we keep on reading, we'll get more context, right? So verse 3 says, some also there were that said, so some are complaining they don't have enough food. Okay, verse 3, some also there were that said, we have mortgaged our lands, vineyards, and houses, that we might buy corn because of the dearth. So in this case, the mortgage meaning like a pledge, right? To give up your land in order to get food or whatnot. So maybe you might say, okay, for the next, 10 years or whatnot, that's like I'll loan you my land, all right, and then in return you provide me with money, resources, food, whatever it is that they mortgage the land for. Here more than likely it would be money, right? Because they mentioned they did that they could buy corn because of the dearth, which is like the famine or food shortage. So they were giving up their lands, their vineyards, their houses. Verse 4, there were also that said, we have borrowed money for the king's tribute, and that upon our lands and vineyards. So some are saying when it comes to paying the taxes, we have to borrow money by, once again, mortgaging and giving up our lands just to be able to pay those taxes, right? Yet now our flesh is as the flesh of our brethren, our children is as their children, and lo, we bring into bondage our sons and our daughters to be servants. So they're saying, look, we got kids just like they have kids, right? We have brothers just like them. We have children just like them. But why is it that we have to sell our children into bondage to be servants or slaves, right? And some of our daughters are brought onto bondage already, right? So we've had to even already give up, right, our daughters or sell them as servants just to be able to make ends meet. Neither is it in our power to redeem them, for other men have our lands and vineyards. So they don't have the money or the capability to go and buy back their children that they had to sell into slavery or servitude because of them needing resources or money or whatever it is, right? So having already mortgaged their lands, their vineyards, they had nothing left. That's why they had to resort to these measures here. So they're complaining now about this, because this wasn't that they were doing this amongst the heathen. This was to other Israelites that they were selling their children as servants to, in order to make some money, and and mortgaging their lands to other Israelites. Verse 6, and I was very angry when I heard their cry and these words. Then I consulted within myself, and I rebuked the nobles and the rulers, and said unto them, Ye exact usury, every one of his brother. And that usury is that interest, right? So you when you lend money, or whatever it is you lend, you're charging interest on that to your own fellow Israelites, and that's off. It says here, and I set a great assembly against them. Now I think there should be a precept here in the law that's against that, right? Exodus 22 and 25. If thou lend money to any of my people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be unto him as a usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury. Leviticus 25 and 36. Take thou no usury of him or increase, but fear thy God, that thy brother may live with thee. So in the law, you're not supposed to be doing that, but here we were, and Israelites were doing that. So this is what Nehemiah is having to address here. And I set a great assembly against them. So he basically called an assembly, a council, to deal with this matter, that the nobles and the rulers, those that were higher up and better off, were lending with usury. Verse 8, and I said unto them, We, after our ability, have redeemed our brethren the Jews, which were sold unto the heathen. And will ye even sell your brethren? Right, so here we are, redeeming those that were already captive under the heathen, being that we were taken captive over there, and you're already here, like it says, selling your brethren, right? Meanwhile, we're trying to redeem each other from the heathen, just so they can come here and be sold again by you. And will ye even sell your brethren, or shall they be sold on to us? Then held they their peace, and found nothing to answer. Yeah, because they knew what they were doing wasn't right. Verse 9. Also I said, It is not good that ye do. So what you're doing is not good. Ought ye not to walk in the fear of our God, because of the reproach of the heathen, our enemies? Right, so with the enemies already reproaching us, right, aren't you supposed to, live with the fear of God? Verse 10, I likewise, and my brethren, and my servants, might exact of them money and corn. I pray you, let us leave of this usury. And the word exact here goes into lend. Okay. Yeah, might exact. We have here nasha, and it says here, to lend, be a creditor, to lend. So as he's saying here, we'll lend to them as well, but let's stop this charging interest on lending and all of that. Restore, I pray you, to them, even this day, their lands, their vineyards, their olive yards, and their houses, also the 100th part of the money, and of the corn, the wine, and the oil, that ye exact of them. So give them back their land, give them back this very day, right? Give them back their land, their vineyards, their olive yards, their houses, and the interest that you charge on the corn, wine, oil, all of that you lend to them, the interest you charge on that, pay that back to them. Verse 12, then said they, we will restore them, and will require nothing of them. So will we do as thou sayest. Then I called the priest, and took an oath of them, that they should do according to this promise. So they agreed to it, and he called the priest to come and confirm that. So now you're taking an oath to this. And then, verse 13, also I shook my lap, and said, so God shake out every man from his house. So you can imagine saying he shook his lap. Think of it like you can imagine, right? At least what comes to my mind is if you're sitting down, say you're eating, right? You have your garment on, you're eating, and maybe you're eating like what do they call those? The matzos, the flatbread, the things that break, like crackers or something, and you get a bit on your garment, right, on your thighs. How you would grab your garment and sort of just like shake it, so that to get all the pieces off, you just shake it off of you and so on. You can sort of imagine that here. And he's using that to symbolize, as we're about to read, so God shake out every man from his house and from his labor that performeth not this promise. So you just took an oath, right? And you just promised to do this. If you don't do this, the same way I just shook, my lap here, this is how the Lord is going to basically empty you and take away your house and your labor, meaning the things that the things you possess, basically, right? For not keeping this promise. Even thus be he shaken out and emptied. And all the congregation said, Amen, which means so let it be, and praised the Lord Yahweh. And the people did according to this promise. Verse 14, more, and now this is an example, because at this point in Israel's history, the dominant power, right, are the Persians. Artaxerxes, the king at this time, he was a Persian, right? So the dominant power are the Persians. Now, this example here is going to show you why it is that in the future, when the Greeks came up into power, the Lord ended up having somebody like Antiochus Epiphanes, right, come up and do all those atrocious things that he did to our people, because even though at this point we had just been, right, we were sent to captivity, then under Cyrus, we're allowed to sort of come back, and the Lord was like lightening up the captivity a bit for us, you still had Jake in the land doing this. And it continued, right? You had Ezra. Ezra came in and dealt with the people, with the iniquity that they were committing. Nehemiah came in and dealt with this situation here. And this wasn't the only thing he had to deal with. But then what do you think happened after they died, right? Or after Nehemiah went back to Persia, right? What do you think happened then? Israel went back to their wicked ways. And in process of time, the Lord set up the Greeks, which then came in and did the things that they did. So I just wanted to highlight that real quick. Verse 14, moreover, from the time that I was appointed to be their governor in the land of Judah, from the 20th year, even unto the 32nd year of Artaxerxes the king, that is 12 years, right? So when Nehemiah asked for permission to leave, right, he spent about 12 years, as is being mentioned here, in Judah, in the land of Judah, building the wall, making sure everything is good. Okay, and as he says here, so he likely had that permission, right, to be appointed governor in order to see to it that everything could be taken care of. And that's why you'll see that he mentions oftentimes himself, his brethren, his servants, the men that were with him, because Nehemiah wasn't just like a average Joe. He was a man of authority. So he says here, right, of the 12 years that he's been governor of Judah, I and my brethren have not eaten the bread of the governor. And the bread of the governor is likened unto a portion, right, that is allotted for the governor or the ruler. So just like when you had a king, he would get the best of this and he would get the best of that, and you would make servants out of you, and you would have to provide him with certain portions and rations and so on. Something similar for the governor. But Nehemiah is saying here that he and his brethren have not done that, right? They haven't required that of the people. But the former governors that had been before me were chargeable unto the people, and had taken of them bread and wine, beside 40 shekels of silver. Yea, even their servants bear rule over the people. So he's saying the previous governors, they didn't give it them, right? Even if the people were in a low state or whatever the case is, they still required the amount that was due to the governor for his his preservation, right? So the bread, the wine, the shekels of silver, all of those things, they still took them, to the extent that even the servants of the governor, as it says, bear rule over the people, were in that position of almost like taking advantage of the people. But so did not I, because of the fear of God. So Nehemiah, he of course had that compassion, but also the fear of the Lord, to know that, look, the condition that our people are in already is bad enough as it is. Why would I then add on to it, just because I have the authority to? Verse 16, yea, also I continued in the work of this wall, neither bought we any land, and all my servants were gathered thither unto the work. Moreover, there were at my table 150 of the Jews and rulers. So in addition to this, right, at his table, meaning those that he fed, those that he took care of, there were 150 of the Jews, right, and rulers, beside those that came onto us from among the heathen that are round about us. So not even counting those that would come from the nations about, to Jerusalem here, which then Nehemiah would then take care of them as well. Now that which was prepared for me daily, so the daily portion, was 1 ox and 6 choice sheep. Also fowls were prepared for me, and once in 10 days store of all sorts of wine. So every 10 days then they would get this nice set of wine, right? Yet for all this required not I the bread of the governor, because the bondage was heavy upon this people. So even having to feed all these people, even with this sizable ration here, he didn't require, it wasn't coming from the people, right? He wasn't charging the people, to requiring them to provide that to him, or to provide the money to him that he would use for that, because as he says, they were already suffering enough. Verse 19, think upon me, my God, for good, according to all that I have done for this people. So as Nehemiah is mentioning here, like, Lord, don't miss this part, right? Bear witness to this, right? See what I'm doing for them. Like I could be doing X, Y, and Z, but seeing the state that they're in, it wouldn't be right of me to do such a thing. But just keep it in your mind, right? That if all else fails, at least I've done this for your people. And that brings us to the end of Nehemiah, the 5th chapter. Lord willing, this is edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Raka Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.